Overtime versus double time. What is really the difference? If you get started working in a skilled trade, doesn't even matter what trade you get into, whether that's union or non-union, whether that's HVAC or lineman, you're probably going to have the opportunity to work some overtime. Or I would guarantee that you're going to have the opportunity to work overtime, because overtime is something that a lot of construction and blue collar people like to do, is work overtime. Now, with that being said, what is the difference between working overtime versus double time? When it comes to these two different factors, I consider double time as overtime. Now, but everywhere you go, it's going to be completely different. Where you go work in New York, it's going to be different in Washington. Where you go work in Arizona, it's going to be different in Montana or Minnesota or Alabama. One of the biggest factors is if you're working union or non-union, and your employer you're working for is going to determine whether you're getting paid overtime or you're getting paid double time. The biggest differentiating factor between overtime and double time is this. Overtime is usually your hourly rate times time and a half. So if you make $50 an hour, let's say 50, and then you times that by 1.5, that's going to give you $75 an hour. And that's going to be very common for you when it comes to overtime. That's for the most part what people say. Hey, I'm getting OT. I'm getting paid basically time and a half. So take your hourly rate and you multiply that by 1.5, and that's going to give you your hourly rate on overtime. When it comes to double time, it's exactly how it sounds. Double time. So double your rate. So you would do 50 times 2, which equals 100. Now, this number is going to vary everywhere you go. In the union, as a lineman, that's what I am. I've been a lineman for 4 years, been in the lineman trade since 2017. Everywhere I've been, and I've worked in a lot of states in the United States, it's different. You go to California, the hourly rate there is almost $70 an hour. I'm not exactly sure off the top of my head right now. But here in Arizona, it's 59 some change. In Washington, it's like 64 an hour. You go to certain parts of New York and it's like $60 an hour. So it's different everywhere you go depending on the contract in the jurisdiction or area you're working under, what union hall jurisdiction. So that's going to be your biggest differentiating factor between overtime and double time. If the contract says anything over 10 is double time, or anything over 8 up to 10 is time and a half, and then over 10 is double time. Some places, all overtime is double time. If you are working at a place like, I know Washington, all overtime is double time. Anytime you're working anything over 8 hours, you're getting double your hourly rate, which if it's $64 an hour, you're going to be making $128 an hour. That's pretty doggone good money. $128 an hour is your overtime hourly rate. When you say, hey, I'm getting overtime in the Northwest as a lineman, you're probably making close to $130 an hour. There's really no such thing as just time and a half overtime there, except for like on transmission jobs where they're working a lot of hours. The contract's a little bit different. But for the most part, all overtime is double time. So overtime to them is double time. Now, other places like here in Arizona, anything over 8 up to 10 is time and a half. Anything over 10 is double time. Fridays, it's not over 40, it's over 8. And then on Saturdays, all overtime is time and a half up until I think 8 or 10. I don't know exactly what the contract says. And then Sundays is all double time. Holidays is all double time. And then per contract, it'll have like your working hours are, let's say, 6 to 4. So if you start before 6, it's double time. And then up till 4, there's a lot of different like variation factors when it comes to that kind of stuff. You can't really know exactly, hey, is your overtime double time unless you see a contract. On the union side, that's usually how it works. But if you go to the non-union side, it's going to, sure, there's contracts, but it's more so going to be depending on the employer and what the employer has in their contract or, in their package. If your employer, you're working on non-union side and they say, hey, yeah, if you're working, at night, it's time and a half, it's overtime. If Sundays are double time, holidays are double time. The biggest differentiating factor is overtime usually means time and a half of your hourly rate, and double time means double your hourly rate. wage. So 50 bucks an hour, time and a half, $75 an hour. $50 an hour on double time is $100 an hour. And whatever the contract says, whatever your employer has in your contract, if you're working on a non-union side, that's what it's going to be. So I can't tell you how it is for you in Alabama or how it is for you in Maine or how it is for you in Oregon. It's all going to depend on the contract and or the employer and the union, of course, if you're working for a union. So hopefully that helps you guys if you kind of were confused on what is the difference between overtime and double time. What does that really kind of mean? It's that. Overtime is typically time and a half, and double time is typically double your hourly rate is what you're going to be paid if you're on double time overtime. Hopefully you guys learned from this video the differences between those two terms when it comes to working overtime and getting paid. Comment down below what videos you guys want to see next. If there's any trades specifically you guys want to know more about or just want more information, leave them in the comments down below. And you give me some more ideas for 2025 on how to help you guys further your agenda or your goals to get started in a trade. Leave your questions and things down below. With Blue Collar EDU, I'm here to expose, teach, educate you guys about blue collar career opportunities, how to get started in those trades, and a little bit more different insights when it comes to working in trades and those sorts of things. Hopefully you guys can learn from this video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. But with that being said, I'll catch you guys on the next video.